Well, hello, class, and here we are. Let's see, start of week 3, I believe it is, or week 4, sorry. So it's the second week of our second unit, starting here on Monday, the 28th of January. Believe it or not, we're almost a quarter of the way through our semester, which is just crazy to think about, right? So we're 2/8 of the units in, so we're 1/4 almost. So that simple math. I'm not a math guy, but I just did that in my mind. I'm actually kind of proud that I did that. Just kidding. But yeah. So hopefully the class has been great for you so far. There's been a lot of great interaction. And I know it's kind of, I'm just going to say it, it's a little bit awkward sometimes when you're interacting with the same group of folks, right? So you're always responding, you're always kind of going back and forth, like, I just talked to you, or I just talked to so-and-so. But I think about that, and I think that's okay. I've taught some smaller classes before, and if we were to be in an actual face-to-face, on-ground class, we'd be doing the exact same thing, right? We'd be talking amongst ourselves with a small group of people, and I think we'd be perfectly okay with doing just that. So I hope that you're finding that what you're kind of having to pull out of yourselves to then share in the written word, the typed word with your classmates is helpful. I've really enjoyed getting to hear what it is you're sharing. It's interesting, and I do this every semester. It feels like things kind of get away from us all of a sudden. We start, and then boom, life gets crazy. And I kind of tend to just kind of hang back a little bit, right? As I've read what you've written, it's great to get to know you, hear your stories, what it was that's kind of brought you to where you are in this moment, why you're doing what you're doing, and so forth. That's been really fantastic. It's been great to kind of read about how you would respond to certain case studies, these vignettes, right? The things that obviously not real life as far as your encounters, but probably, I think it's fair to say, real life for somebody else. Perhaps these are even case studies that are taken from real life scenarios or experiences that the author of our text has gone through. So who knows? But this is the way that we get better, and we kind of get better prepared, I guess you could say, for doing this work. If we ever move into it, the career work specifically is what I'm talking about, upon completion of the degree program and when we get well into our careers. I will tell you that a lot of the things that we're looking at in these books, right, the case studies, the texts we're reading, these are things that are real life. I meet with clients on a pretty regular basis. I think I could say clients meaning clients that I have in my private practice, and then clients, if I were to kind of utilize clients to describe the students with whom I work. And a lot of these situations are things that they go through. These are real life scenarios. And so how better to prepare for what it is that you will potentially eventually encounter than practice by way of the case studies and so forth. So the other thing is I kind of just kind of lay low a little bit, and this will change as I'll really kind of get into the content, responding and all that, especially it's easier with a smaller group, is that I think one of the things I like to model in some ways is I bet you on the other side of this computer, you're sitting there going, when's this guy going to chime in? What's the deal? Like we read this, took this assignment, reading this book. I think I know what I'm supposed to do, and yet at the same time, I'm not entirely sure. There's two things I would say. One, I haven't heard from you. So I always operate with the assumption that if I don't hear from you as the student, then you're probably doing fairly decently, relatively okay right now. Well enough, I guess I would say, that you don't need to ask for assistance or help from me. So that's one thing. The second thing is really intentional, because this career space that we're kind of spending some time swimming in right now, it is an interesting, unique place. And I think in some ways the experience that you have with this being new content, for the most part, and maybe not entirely, but for the most part, some new content, and not really sure exactly what to do or maybe even where to go with it, I think is in some ways a similar life experience that people may have when trying to figure out what they want to do for work. Or maybe not even trying to figure out what to do for work, but just trying to get a job. Not knowing where to turn, not knowing what questions to even ask, not knowing what the process looks like. Like, okay, so how do I even apply for a job is a question I think that some folks, how do I even find a job, and what does it even look like? Now, this is a much more extreme example, but I was talking with a colleague, and they were telling me that a friend of theirs had been working with a client, and this client was a younger person looking for a job, and they were asking, literally, this is a question that was asked, is how do I get to work? And so the response was, well, you drive there. And their question was, what do you mean drive there? Like, I don't have somebody that's going to come pick me up and take me to work. This is someone that's not even yet graduated from college. So, I mean, you get these really kind of seemingly silly questions, but at the same time, there is so much that I can take for granted because I'm in this career development space literally every single day, and I would offer up almost entirely the entire day. And so these things that I'm thinking about are not normal things that everybody else is thinking about. And so even as I'm doing the work with you in the class and we're thinking through this, you're not thinking about the things that I'm thinking about because your work, your life is not career development. Your work, your life is oftentimes, and maybe entirely, it's marriage and family therapy related. And you're taking this class simply because you want to get the double licensure with the LPCC. And I get that. And I have no problem with that, right? You may never use this content again. I hope you do, but you may never do, and that's perfectly okay. But I have to remember that even although you're in the class and you have the books, this is not probably your the initial thing that you're going to be thinking about. And so I do that just a little bit to kind of give a little bit of like a not to create anxiety or concern, but just to kind of be able to come and have a video like this and say, hey, what you may have been experiencing over the last week or two is in a lot of ways what folks looking for work are experiencing on a regular basis because they don't know where to turn. They don't even know what questions to ask because they don't know what they don't know. And if they haven't had help, right? If they didn't have any experience, talk to people that could help them with their career development process, then they're clueless. I mean, I think I mentioned maybe a week or two ago, I was talking with somebody on the phone, somebody that had reached out for help and had really a terrible, tragic story. I mean, just super sad story of how they got to where they were, and they've been out of the workforce for 17 years, almost 2 decades, and just weren't even sure where to start. And so, I didn't have a lot of time to speak with him. I was in the car driving back from a meeting one evening, and just in 30 minutes was able to give all sorts of suggestions and ways to think about different ideas with work and where to look for, different educational opportunities, things that could prepare them for whatever comes next. And they were just so grateful at the end of this conversation. But for me, that was something that just, was on the top of my mind. I'm driving in my car, I'm thinking about a million other things. But because I spend so much time in this space, it was really easy for me to share. And I realized that for you, that's not where you are. And so please reach out, ask questions. If you need help with anything, let me know. I mean, seriously, anything. What I'm looking forward to is when we get into the LibTAC text and you start to do your 3, 2, 1 and you kind of write about the 3 things that are like, oh, that was a great takeaway or aha moments. And then the 2 questions. And then the one thing that you say, I could put this into practice tomorrow. And I love getting your questions. The questions are always so meaningful. I love them because I get to respond to them and I get to hear what's going on. I'm actually forcing you to ask questions to allow me an opportunity to respond to those questions. And that starts here pretty soon. But right now we're just kind of, again, easing into things. I don't look at this class as being by any means a challenging course. It should not be a challenging course. I mean, you have to do work, right? You have to read books and write papers and you have to think about things and, engage in discussion and all that. But the class in and of itself, my goal and intent is not for it to be like, oh my goodness, this is such a hard class. No, I want it to be a bit of a reprieve, a bit of a sigh of relief even as you get into the content, the text, and the conversations. You go, this is actually a lot of fun. And I would say that it's a lot of fun because it's the things that we deal with every single day. Work is so important to what we do, ethos of who we are, our makeup, and in some ways, although I think we need to get away from it, but in some ways our identity is wrapped up in what we do. So as you continue to progress through the content, you continue to think through what it is you're learning, you're making connections, you're discussing things with classmates. I just want to encourage you, reach out. Any question you have, reach out and ask. No question is a silly question, right? Some of you have asked some questions in the discussion forum. That's great. And I would say this, if it's a question that you think is going to benefit the whole class, write it in Canvas. If it's a question that you think is really something that's unique to you, then ask me. And here's the deal. If you ask a question that you think is unique to you, and I read it and interpret it as being not unique to you, but relevant and important for the entire class, I'll just re-ask the question and give you an answer to the whole class when I do a video like this. All right. So yeah, we continue out this second unit. You've got the paper in response to the well-being, not only assessment, but the text itself. So hopefully you're almost about, I guess we're early on still, but hopefully you're nearing. Maybe you haven't started, but hopefully you'll start soon reading the text, and you'll have enough read, of course, get through the book, and then write your response to the actual content of that text itself, along with the assessment. I hope you find it valuable. I actually, one of the clients I'm working with right now, that was an assignment that I gave this person, was to read well-being and take the assessment. I'm going to go guest lecture in a couple of similarly titled courses as ours, but for them college counseling program tomorrow night and Thursday, and they use the well-being text. And so I'll have some reference to kind of fall back on and say, hey, we're using the same book in a class I'm teaching. I think it's a really valuable, in fact, I would say it's an invaluable resource for you and for me as we work with folks in career development, but also in all other elements of therapy as well. So hope you're having a great week. Again, if I can help in any way, please let me know. I'm here to support you. You have my email address. You've got the opportunity, if you wanted to Skype or do a Google Hangout, we can do that as well. So I'm happy to touch base and serve you and support you in any way that I possibly can as we progress through the class. So have a great week 4, second part of the second unit. And I'm looking forward to kind of really just digging in, engaging in conversation with you for the rest of the time here in our class together this semester. Have a great week, and we will see you online real soon.